we're getting ready to hang that light and do all that jump out there work.
Alrighty, they get you a ride and everything?
No, they didn't get us one, but they're easy where we just walk over. I have to use my car to go hang that light and jump.
Sorry, brother, all this was set in before I got here. I apologize, I didn't check you. Ready to arm.
One late Friday afternoon, we find ourselves in the yard in Loyall, Kentucky, observing the progress from recent track removal and reclamation in the yard. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another Railfan Micah Turner adventure. Loyall sure has seen better days, with several tracks in the yard in the process of being torn out. Track removal is a topic for another time, however, and as the sun sets, the CV gets busy.
Kentucky.
2025 thus far has brought life back to the Cumberland Valley. In September of 2024, Hurricane Helene decimated over 40 miles of track on the former clinch field, and as a result, severed the through freight route coming north. One of the major customers on the route is Eastman Chemical in Kingsport, Tennessee, a company the CV is familiar with as a result of coal traffic from E090 and CO90 like you're seeing now. In early 2025, to combat the outage, daily Eastman freight coming from the south was assigned to the new L668 and L669 symbols, in which would be daily trains routed across the CV en route to Kingsport. As a result, over a half dozen jobs were re-established in Loyall, and the CV action has since boomed in comparison to what it once was. In the last light of the day, CO90 is ready to head out of the yard towards Kingsport with the second cut of loads from Balkan. The street lights had already lit up the town of Baxter as CO-90 began its journey south. Meanwhile, back in Loyall, the crew for L669 has just arrived from Corbin and is ready to begin their work. The light EO90 power had brought L669's train back earlier that morning, and the day's L668 had brought an extra engine down from Corbin for said counterpart. There was one problem, however. L669's engine was still facing south. Though a train can run with an engine long hood forward, it is preferred to have the cab lead to avoid speed restrictions and vision impairments. As a result, we were lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time as L669 received permission to turn their engine at Harlan Junction. Only 3 tracks in the yard are in service these days, and all 3 were occupied on this particular night. As the rear of CO-90 clears, watch as we venture back to Loyall and observe L669's crew setting their engine out of the 668 consist and discuss their plan with the dispatcher.
You can do everything look out, bro. Who's over here? You know? Right now, the ones we got cars in it. 8, 16, and 17. The only 3 I've got. Is that correct? Some storm. That is correct. From Saturday afternoon through Saturday. Yes, sir. The primary threat. Locked out, I believe. Locked out too, Tim.
Well, I figured out there late and come all the way back. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Asphalt.
Copy that phone.
Alrighty, sir.
Alright, give me a slack on 10. Clear ball. Right now, give me a little slack. Alright, I got it. I'll take it.
About 8 as far as I can see right now. Stanley up here at Loyall. L66912, go ahead, sir. Got Reader and Engle we were on duty today at 1745. Got bulletin number 31700. 31700. Going to be leaving out here today with one engine, CSXT 438. That's 438. Got 8 loads, 21 empties, 1,884 tons, 1,822 feet. We got to turn this engine first thing. If I can, I'd like to get that Harlan Junction yard limits from you. Alright. I got to get you a train sheet. Hold on just a second. That's that. You have a second engine on that train? They came up here with 3, and they given the other 2 to another train. All we got is 438. Okay, just a 438. And you just need North Harlan Junction, yard limits, South Harlan Junction, yard limits, over? Sir, that's it. Where are you going to show for a mile post? That's it. North Harlan, South Harlan. And what are you going to show for a mile post? 0WB 240.0, 240.0, 0WB. RDC1 number is 71825, 71825. Today's date is 031425. 0WB 240.0, L66912 with the 438, Ingalls copy, and Circle Line 1A. Operate on the main track in both directions between North Harlan Junction yard limits, main track, and South Harlan Junction yard limits, main track. DC1 71825, 71825, 031425, 0WB 240.0, L66912, CSXT 438, Ingalls line 1A. Operate on main track, both directions between North Harlan Junction yard limits, main track, and South Harlan Junction yard limits, main track. RDC1 number 71825 is located in effect at 2105, 2105 SB. 2105 SB, we'll come back into Loyall here and get on our train. We'll holler back at you. We will be coming off ML1, but I'll release this EC1 when we get back in the yards then. Okay, all right, we'll talk to you in a little bit. L669.
Harlan Junction was once a pivotal point in rail traffic on the CV. Not only would the regular freight and passenger trains serve the depot within the town of Harlan, but also the massive flow of coal traffic rolling off of the Clover Fork branch as well as the nearby Cadrons Creek branch. Both of these branches are now inactive, the Clover Fork of which had its last train roll through in 2013, in which I have faint memories of as a child. The Y at Harlan Junction, however, still sees rare use when an engine has to be turned out of Loyall. Engines are typically turned at either Corbin or Kingsport, with subsequent Ys also being located at Pineville and Glidden. As a result, catching the Y in action at Harlan Junction is incredibly rare and is something I had always wanted to witness. For only once out of a handful of times across the past decade, the crossing gates guarding US 421 lit up, and I hope you found it as neat as I did. With their engine now facing back north, we'll meet L669 back at Loyall as they unite with their train and prepare to head towards Corbin.
Thunderstorms during the daytime hours, especially across.
L66912, Salem.
Yes, sir, Grado.
C1 number 71825, 71825, L66912, engine CSXT438, Ingle. Release my authority on all tracks between North Harlan Junction yard limits and South Harlan Junction yard limits. All I hold, over.
Alrighty, C1 number 71825 for the L66912 with the 438. Eagles release my authority on all tracks between North Harlan Junction yard limits, South Harlan Junction yard limits. So you're releasing all you haul on 71825 at 2154, 2154 SB.
2154 SB, we're ready for a signal here off number 1 out of the yard, ready to go to Corbin. We're here at the 6.
Alright, you guys know if you're way or not over?
No, I don't have any idea about that.
Alright, we'll get you going. Come right along when you're ready.
Here we go, thank you. L669.
around about the time that L669 had cleared, counterpart L668 was now preparing to follow in the tracks of CO90 and head south towards Kingsport. We caught a quick look in the yard before ending our night at Baxter within the squealing shadows of southbound tankers. Thank you all for tuning in to this Rail Fan Micah Turner adventure within the darkened shadows of the Cumberland Valley Subdivision. If you liked what you've seen, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. I've got plenty more surprises in the near future, so stay tuned. Until next time, from the coalfields, this is Rail Fan Micah Turner. God bless y'all. Mm-hmm.